tell me when you see me, and then say share.
Okay.
Actually, no, I'm gonna have to share it because I'm an admin. Just tell me when it's live. And then say share.
Okay.
Actually, no, I'm gonna have to share it because we are live on YouTube. Just tell me when it's live. And then say share.
Okay.
Actually, no, I'm gonna have to share it because
Okay.
we are live on YouTube.
I have it up. I'm going to share it.
No, I'm gonna have to share it.
Okay, you're gonna share it.
Hi, everyone. Sorry for the delay. I'm about to share it. We're getting ready here. We had some technical difficulties, so we are going to share from YouTube rather than Facebook, but we're going to share our YouTube stream to Facebook because there's always a workaround in technology. Thanks for your patience, Sheila.
No problem. It's like you got to just make it work.
We're all new at this. Okay.
There may be a slight delay, so.
Let's see how this works.
Okay.
All right. Let's see how this works.
Okay.
And now, all right.
Do I click on that?
I'm muting my YouTube so I don't hear myself twice. Am I showing up on Facebook?
Yeah, I see the link on Facebook. So do I watch the chat in YouTube?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
No, you watch the chat in Facebook. Sorry,
Facebook
that's my
is just-
producer. She's off screen right now.
The Facebook is just a link to the YouTube.
Oh, it's just a link to their YouTube. Okay. All right, Sheila, we're going to start because this is recording.
Great, great, great.
And we are going to go live, and we will put this link on Facebook for those of your constituents that have missed it because we didn't get to go to Facebook Live tonight because the link from Zoom wasn't working. And I'm really sorry about that, but we have lots of viewers of the Arundel Patriot, as you know, because you were on our show this weekend called Star, which is straight talk about racism. And I was really, really happy to have you on that show. I'd like to introduce Shelia Bryant here. This show is called The Deep because we get an hour-long interview with somebody who really, we believe is an important person for you to get to know or an important subject for you to get to know. And now that we have a platform and we have an audience, we're really excited to use that. The Arundel Patriot is a nonprofit organization. It's a volunteer media group. It was started by a group of us in 2017. And we bring you really, really good content. We're building and building, but we need your support. We started a Patreon service where you can subscribe for as little as $5 a month. And you can do that by going to our Facebook page and hitting the shop button, and it'll take you to the link, or you can go to arundelpatriot.org, where you can see all of our content, all of our written content, posts, photography, it's politics, it's features, it's essays, and all kinds of good stuff. So we're here tonight because I got to meet Shelia Bryant, who's running for District 4, full disclosure, that's my district. And here we are in the middle of a pandemic. And Shelia, you are a graduate of Harvard Kennedy Business School, is that correct?
Kennedy School of Government.
And Kennedy School of Government, and you're an attorney and you're former military. You've been all over the world as Inspector General for the Naval Forces in Europe and Africa. And now you're in Little Maryland and you're running for office, and you're just this big personality with this great CV. And we have nowhere for you to go in a parade. We have nowhere for you to campaign. There's no signs. I mean, what's that like? As your first foray into politics?
I did have a very small role. Well, I was elected to sit on a hospital board in San Diego County, but this is, yeah, the first time that I've had a campaign that was on a state level or a county-wide. So it's been interesting. It's been great. It's been great because I got to meet so many people and to talk to them and to share my vision of how, I think we need what the leadership that we need here in Maryland. So the most difficult thing I think has been the fundraising part. Since we don't have uh, um, state-sponsored contributions, everything has to be raised unless you take money from PACs or corporate big money folks. Then it's difficult to just stay on the phones and make the grassroots calls. And then since we've had this pandemic, it's kind of crude to me to call people and ask them for money when they're probably wondering where their next meal is coming from. So that's been a challenge.
So what made you decide that you wanted to run for office at this time?
Well, I have always known that I had to give back. I'm originally from Mississippi, where my uncle was president of the NAACP in my hometown in Macomb. And he was president for like 30 years. And this was during a time when it was dangerous to be president of the NAACP or to be a member or to vote. And so what he did was he helped Black folks register to vote, and he would have voting classes and to try and convince people that yes, it's worth the risk. And meanwhile, he risked his own life. His house was bombed, his barbershop was bombed, and he did it anyway. And I say that all the time because it really touches me when I think that he was in danger all the time. There were people from the community who actually stood watch outside of his house so that he wouldn't get assassinated. And the Klan would follow him to work. And so he had a posse behind him to protect him while he went to work. He worked for the railroad. And so it was a federal job because normally if you were part of the NAACP or did any kind of organizing or political work, you would get fired by the local employer. So thinking of what he did has always put this fire in my soul that you have an obligation to give back. You aren't free to just live because you owe to them, you owe to your ancestors, and you owe to your friends and family and the next generation. You owe, there's an obligation to give back, to make the world better than you found it, and to help make life better for yourself and your children and their children. And so I've always felt like that. So when Donald Trump got elected, it even pushed me further because I was so angry and so hurt. It felt like we've been betrayed. How could this happen in America? The America that, many of us have spent our lives serving. I spent 30 years in the military on and off, and retired as a colonel. And I felt helpless and I felt like where's democracy? Where is that feeling that should be in all of us to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States against reality TV show hosts becoming president. So I said, I just got to do something. Everybody has their role to play. And I just felt like this is my role. I have the lived experience. I have, the education, I have the passion, and I have a vision. And so, I talked to some people here. I talked to some of my professors at Harvard, and, I was just encouraged to do it. And so I embarked on this journey, with just myself. I mean, I developed a team, but it was myself and a couple of my friends that a lot of them are retired military as well.
So Maryland, right? Here we are in blue Maryland. with not one woman in the US Congress or Senate since Barbara Murkowski left, right? A long time ago. And that just seems absolutely pathetic to me. So, how is that even possible? This is 2020. And we're this state that prides itself with having so many Democrats in Congress and yet not one woman. So, why is that? And how hard is the nut to crack that is the blue machine that is Maryland? How have you found it?
Well, first of all, Donna Edwards left her seat. This is the seat that I'm running for now, of course, is the one Donna Edwards left to run for Barbara Mikulski's seat in Senate. And so that was what, 2016. And even though Jocelyn Pena-Melnick ran, which she probably was the best candidate in that race, she didn't win. And there is something about this machine. Well, it's like a self-licking ice cream, is, is many things here. It's like you can't be part of the machine unless you're part of the machine. And it's very difficult to get elected. So I'm not really in that, because again, I have the attitude that we need to change the way we're doing things. We can't keep doing the same things and not getting the progress that we need. Why should you get elected simply because you were already there? That's and Anthony Brown found that too when he didn't succeed in his bid for governor. But that may be because he just wasn't connecting with voters. I don't, I'm not here to really badmouth him, but on the other hand, he doesn't seem to have that connection with real people. I don't know.
So is that one of the main reasons that, you are coming in as a primary challenger to him, or
Exactly.
are they his policies? And when you say, you can't expect things to change, there are a lot of Democrats right now who will say Trump is the most terrifying and worst leader they've ever had. And yet a lot of them have voted for all of his budgets and let a lot of things pass that are those terrible, scary things that he's doing. I don't know Brown's, I don't have his voting record in front of me, but there are a lot of people too who say, well, once Trump's gone, everything's going to be fine. We'll just go back to normal.
So I'm getting a delay on this end. So
there you are.
Okay, there we go. So my problem with him is that he votes with everybody. He votes, along with the group, and just to fly under the radar, not to really call attention to an issue that he feels passionate about, and to tell us what it is that he wants us to do, or that he's doing for us. I mean, it's just very mild-mannered Clark Kent-ish. And I want to go into be Superwoman. Yeah.
We need Superwoman.
That's right. That's right.
Superwomans from Maryland. So one of the main things on your platform that you care about a lot is criminal justice reform. As a lay person, when I hear the word reform, sometimes like, oh, that word, right? Because you get reform, and sometimes that means like all the corporations come in and change everything for their benefit. So
right.
How do you really make reform for the people as far as criminal justice reform?
Wow, it really is a tall order. And what it's going to take is community involvement, for one thing. And I'm part of right now, the Justice Task Force in Progressive Maryland that we're doing some work with reentry. But anyway, I think that reform starts in elementary school, teaching kids and providing them with the wraparound services to make them feel their energy and their value and their worth. And then, teaching them skills that are going to get them to the next phase, which is preparing for college. So it starts from that. It starts, from us demanding more from our elected leaders. It starts in parental involvement. It starts with, kids who come to school with all this trauma, getting it treated then at their infancy, at their youth, and then feeling their beauty and their power. And so then it gets to providing jobs and opportunities for people so they don't do things that are illegal. So first of all, yes, you got to fix that part. And then there's policing, which has to change from this aggressive, do what I said, I'm the law kind of approach to de-escalation and protect and serve. How about that? So policing. And then when you talk about the power, the greatest power in this country is within the prosecutor's office. So the prosecutor has the power to decide whether or not to charge you, what crime to charge you with, the number of charges that you get, and that's like it's administered in an unbalanced way. I worked for, my first job as an attorney was working for the district attorney in San Diego, and I found that to be true. It's not administered fairly. It's not just, and so that's where I don't know if you know, but George Soros invested a lot of money in hiring and getting elected some African American and women district attorneys around the country, so that's that could change. We have one in Prince George's County, and also Baltimore has an African American female, and what they're trying to do is to change on that end of reform. So not overcharging. There's alternative forms of holding people accountable. You don't have to just send somebody to prison for doing some minor crime. There are other ways, community-based, restorative justice kinds of things, where people can, face the person that they injured and face their community and take it like a man, I mean, sometimes that's more powerful, having your mother in your face and scolding you sometimes and get things done. I'm being, glib, but there are other ways to hold people accountable. So that's one thing. The mandatory sentencing is ridiculous. I mean, how can you how can you even consider 300 years as an appropriate sentence, or even life in prison for somebody who committed a crime when they're a teenager, for instance? And you disregard them as a human being. It's like Brian Stevenson says that you're not the worst thing you've ever done, because everybody has violated the law in one way or another at some point in life. And so if we just take everybody and punish them, put them in jail, teach them how to be a criminal, and then when they get out of jail, give them absolutely no opportunity to be rehabilitated and to rejoin society, what does it say about us as a nation? We get to do that, to get to decide that. We have to elect leaders who won't vote for these crazy mandatory minimums. And we need sentencing reform. So it's a whole, the gamut goes from childhood and having somebody in prison who's 75, really? I mean, it's just not working. And then the other issue that I really have a problem with is private prisons, where we, the taxpayers, let somebody make a profit from issuing government sanctioned, it's supposed to be rehabilitation, which is not. It's a holding area. I mean, there's no education programs because it's not cost effective to provide all of that. But that's what we should be doing. It should be a place where you go and reflect on why you did the crime, and to get, what I think that criminal injustice, it really reflects the people who have fallen through the cracks. If you look at most of the people in prison, they have some kind of a drug issue or a substance abuse issue or some kind of, mental condition. And if we provided more mental health care at an earlier stage, it's like we criminalized poverty, is what we've done. Absolutely. If you can't get the medical care, if you can't get the drug treatment instead of just throwing you in jail, I mean, we're failing as a society. That's what it's a reflection of.
So what do we do? Let me take that so you brought up two things that are very important, right?
Okay.
So, and they're very sort of top of the heap issues for Democrats and for progressives. Number one is legalization of drugs, specifically marijuana right now.
Absolutely.
You talk a little bit about that, and then you can talk about, yeah, there aren't enough mental health care.
Yeah.
There's not enough mental health care. There's not enough health care. How do
Healthcare.
we solve those two issues? What is your take on legalization? And then let's talk about health care.
So I have a lot of thoughts about legalization. Number one, it should never have been illegal, or at least not placed on the same schedule as cocaine and heroin and all of those drugs, because it's not in that same category. Um, and because now it's legal in some states and not others, that makes it even more ridiculous for it to be illegal on a federal level. The other thing is that it's disproportionately impacted uh, brown brown and black people, this so-called war on drugs. So that's just the basis of it. So now let's legalize it. Let's take it off the Schedule 1 or Schedule A drugs. Let's legalize legalize it nationally. Let's exonerate and expunge the records of those people who have been impacted by war on drugs, and then turn it into a form of reparation for Black people, and make sure that at least 30% of the dispensaries are reserved for African Americans. That's who's been impacted by it. Now, non-Blacks, non-minority people are getting all the dispensaries and making all the money for the same thing. Another individual is in prison for 20 years. And that is just patently unfair. So take the revenue and the taxes from the from the dispensaries and from the sales, and create education facilities where you can teach people how to how to grow it and cultivate it, and package it and sell it and market and all of those things, and make sure that at least 30% are no, that those schools are available to people as a form of reparation. So yeah, it should be legal.
Yeah, good plan. Um, the the other idea, healthcare, Medicare for all. What is your
Yes,
stance?
absolutely. It just hurts. So many things hurt. It's like little cuts, 1,000 little cuts that kill us every day. The injustice that exists in our society, where you can only get health insurance if you can afford it. So that's saying that if you're poor, you don't deserve to be healthy, and that's wrong. So all of these things, like I said, are a reflection of us as a society. So we have to do something about it, which is elect leaders who want to vote for Medicare for all. So how will we pay for it? People always say that. How do we pay for it? Well, if you take away all the middlemen, all the insurance companies, all the administration, all this profit out of it, then you could have a reasonable system that will, you pay people for if the government, our taxpayer money pays for our health, then, and the money that we pay by buying the access to Medicare for all, and you don't have it taken out of your paycheck as a health insurance policy, that's how you pay for it. It's really not magic. It's a no-brainer. And the fact that yes, if you want to pay for your medical care, there should be opportunities for you to go to some specialist and do whatever you want. But if you are a citizen of this country, then you should have medical care available to you, or if you live here, because if people who
So
get,
there have been people, I'm sorry to interrupt you,
that's okay.
along those lines, there have been people that have gone to get a COVID test and got a $3,000 bill for that. And then there are people who have been in the hospital recently. I mean, this pandemic, because of the
It's
cost
crazy.
of medical care for
Mhm.
Americans, will end up bankrupting people. People will lose their homes on top of all of the other financial stress. What kinds of things have you seen as complete failures of our society, our American society, this number one country,
Yeah.
bootstraps and all, with this pandemic?
That is one of them. And so there is a bill, the Emergency Medicare for All Act or something like that. And it would do exactly what you said. It would pay for all the costs, so you wouldn't have to come out of pocket for all those. Yeah, it's a failure from the top down, this pandemic, because in my view, this should have been nationalized from the onset. Just like FEMA handles other emergencies, we could have so much more easily done contact tracing. We could have isolated the numbers of infections and really decreased the numbers who were infected. Um, the other failure that we still haven't resolved is how to keep from having a lot of bankruptcies and foreclosures. I mean, yeah, there's a moratorium on those things now, but once the stay-at-home orders are lifted, the banks and the mortgage holders, the people who own your house, the landlords are going to start imposing all these late fees and back due payments. How's that going to get paid when some of us still won't have a job when this is over? So we've got to start figuring that out. So what Congress should be doing is to provide money directly to the people to keep it going. Because if that had happened, then people would still be spending money on, online or whatever, but they would at least be able to pay their rent and their utilities and all of that. So that it's been a huge failure for, the whole handling of this pandemic.
Raise your hand if you haven't got your check, even your $1,200 stimulus check 8 weeks into the pandemic.
I know.
I have the benefit of having been the independent contractor my whole career, so I've had feast and famine. But most people are used to getting a paycheck, and it evaporated. Unemployment insurance has been crazy, but like you said, without a national policy, and I believe, and I was told that the CDC, if you read How to Deal with a Pandemic by the CDC, it will say there needs to be a national unified message, one message, simple language, and it can't be politicized.
And he's done absolutely the opposite of that. It does. It hurts. It's like, I mean, all of us should be injured to the point where we want to run to the polls. We want to rush right now.
Speaking of running to the polls, I admitted to you, my ballot is sitting over there just to remind my husband that we have to mail these things because we don't get to go to the polls. This will be the first time in many, many years for all of us that we're mailing our ballot in because of the pandemic.
Right.
So there's been a lot of controversy about that, and it seems almost like the administration, or maybe just Trump, is trying to, set it up so that if things don't turn out the way that he wants, he's going to call fraud, right? So that was just this morning. What other things do you worry about with, the idea of moving to paper ballots? Not that the paper ballots are necessarily bad, but what are all the complications that you see coming?
Well, it's obvious that the right to vote is important because otherwise they wouldn't try so hard to keep us from voting. So I think there's a lot of controversy about not funding fully the post office, which is an issue, and not getting funding for COVID if you want to do mail-in ballots, which is, it's so politicized and it's so absolutely wrong. Luckily, even here in Maryland, we do have backup voting for people who don't get a ballot or can't, or for some reason can't vote by mail. But I think that they're going to try every trick in the book, every dirty trick. Like, you can go and drop your ballot off at this location and then destroy the ballots or give wrong information. Or like in, I think it was in Texas somewhere where they created a voting site where like 5,000, 10,000 people had to go to it, only one site. It's like, there's all kinds of voter suppression efforts. And because the Voting Rights Act was, the Supreme Court said that it was, throughout that section 12, is it? section, I can't remember right now, but the section that says you can't change your voting mechanism without getting approval of the Department of Justice. And that was thrown out by the Supreme Court. So we need to reenact that. And also there's a new act in Congress to change the way we do voting. But I think this guy is very dangerous. He has all of the making of a tyrant, of a dictator. When you try to suppress people, the media is an evil force, and all of that is very frightening. I mean, every day I wake up and I say, what new crisis are we going to have? I mean, when we ordered the Iranian general assassinated, and I'm like, oh my God, my daughter's in the military, my son-in-law's in the military. We could start a war with a doggone tweet. I'm sorry, I have a potty mouth. Uh, but it's not funny. It's very, very frightening. Every day there's something, and there's another injust injust injustice done to us as a country, like the way we treated the immigrants earlier, and now it's probably it's settled because there's not much, during the pandemic. There's no border. All the borders are closed, but I mean, putting babies in cages and all of that, it's just crazy. It seems like a alternate universe that we're living in with all this craziness. So we need to change we need to eliminate the electoral college. We need to
Yes.
let people vote.
Talk about that. Why isn't there any push by either side to do that?
Because we might live to regret it. You really don't know what the unintended consequences are when you do something like that. So this is our system in that we know, but the fact is that it benefits the Republicans, since they changed the redistricting. They made the redistricting so politically expedient for them, for the Republicans. And so we this year will be the year of the census. And here's a shout out: if you haven't done your census yet, please go do it. It's important, extremely important.
It's very easy too.
It's very easy, yeah. And
Literally
do it
take
online. 5 minutes, I
It
know.
doesn't feel invasive.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't. And it's like, you should be proud to say to be counted. Yeah.
Be counted and vote.
Yes, because you count. But yeah, so we've really got to change the way we do voting. And we do need what I was saying is that we have the redistricting after the results of the census, so that it'll change. And we shouldn't do it just by political party. It should really be done by an independent entity that puts the districts that don't go circuitously around the corner and through the woods and across the
You couldn't
street.
possibly be talking about Maryland, could you?
It's ridiculous.
They're not even attached, right? It's like, take that pocket.
I know. It's
Like
crazy.
a drunk dart game.
Yeah, the way I looked at the map, it looks like a saddle. There's a big part over here, then a narrow part across where it goes in Laurel and down to Anne Arundel County. It's like, really?
Yeah.
So I don't know. We've got to do better.
Yeah, definitely. So, as a former military, you and I talked about this yesterday when we were, sort of pre-gaming. The Democratic Party, like, I went and I marched against the war, right? You were probably in the military at that time. No offense. My brother was too. But, we really had this like our candidates were out there and saying, we're going to stop. I mean, this is Obama, right, in 2012. And, like, we were the anti-war party. And I don't feel like that's being carried to Washington by Democrats anymore, right? It's like we just stay at war. We don't talk about it. And the military industrial complex keeps getting funded to the tune of $1 gazillion at the expense of a lot of other programs, in my opinion. What's your take on where the Democratic Party was going? And if you go to Congress, what will you bring?
Well, first of all, nobody's going to piss on my leg and tell me it's raining. That's one thing. So I will never vote for a war that doesn't have a defined and clear reason, a threat to the United States and its allies, because that's what we're bound to under NATO. I would never vote for a war to protect the property of rich people or to get oil or to, I mean, I think water is going to be the next issue that we're going to fight over. But when I get to Congress, what I want to make sure is that we limit the power of anybody to go to war without getting Congress's. I mean, there's already a rule, but we need to enforce it. We really need to make sure that we don't do all these skirmishes all over the country and use our babies to go and be pawns in this craziness. I know I was talking about it at another event where when I was in the military and Donald Rumsfeld was the Secretary of Defense, and he said something to the effect that we don't go to war with what we want, we go to war with what we have. And that was in response to people, our soldiers and sailors and Marines getting blown up with these IEDs, and we didn't have the tanks that had the fortified underbelly, and they were getting killed every day. And he's like, oh, well, yeah, I want to give them the good equipment, but, yeah, well, you start the war, then you better damn well have the materials to go to war with. And no, we shouldn't be in an endless war. We need to use diplomacy. We need to use the resources of our country to go and help people get what they want, not give them dictators, not choose who their leaders should be, but just provide the assistance and insight. But no, we cannot continue to have endless wars and use our military as the police in that respect. And the military industrial complex, which my opponent feeds into, most of his investments are from um, the military industrial complex corporations. And a lot of them have been accused of doing all kinds of things like cheating the government, all these contracts where they make so much money. It's ridiculous. And in a lot of the bills that he's sponsored have been to promote the military, the contractors rather, in training so that we can use them more frequently. And I've seen contractors. Some of them are good. I'm not going to deny that. But a lot of times there's absolutely no oversight and they just do what the hell they want, which a lot of times is not much. And so what we need to do is make sure, I was the inspector general, so that's really a big deal for me, is providing oversight. We can't ever have too much oversight. You're spending all this money, then you need to know where it's going. You need to follow the dollars and see where it's going. Because so many times we do things and first of all, we don't think about what could happen and protect ourselves from that. And then we keep doing the same damn thing over and over again, even though should have learned from our past mistakes. So the contracts thing is huge. So what am I going to do? I'm going to make sure there's an oversight agency that monitors contracts. And if they don't include if the contractors don't include minorities, if they don't use small businesses, that kind of thing, they won't get the contracts. And it's not just to support the military industrial complex. If the military needs uniforms, there are other companies that can do it, for instance.
So that being said, how much power would General Dynamics, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, all the lot, Monsanto, let me name some of my faves.
Yes.
Amazon, Facebook, you name it, right? How much power would they have if there was no way that they could buy Congress people, that there was no way they could donate? Why can they? Why do we put up with a system that's just absolutely legalized corruption? Why? Why do we put up with that? And what could you possibly do when you get there, right? We've got the squad, the AOCs, the people that really got there in grassroots, right? What you're doing, got them into Congress. She shows up, and I remember because I follow AOC on her Instagram live, and she's like, the first day I got here, they said, sit down, little girl. You don't know how Washington works. You're going to do what we say. We run this. And it was a bunch of freaking lobbyists.
Yes.
How do we really drain the swamp? How do we really get rid of that?
Campaign finance reform. Get rid of the dark money. Okay. Get rid of Citizens United, so that and do public financing for campaigns. So there's a finite amount of money that can be spent. This is completely BS. That of all the candidates, what was it, like 22 at one point? They all raised millions of dollars. And it's just like going into a big hole. I mean, the media made a lot of money, and some people, but there's got to be a different way to do this. There's got to be. And then we, at, Uncle Joe is okay, and we got to vote for him. But really,
That's
how
a
the hell do we get there? How
Hmm.
did Donald Trump become our president? What is going on? So obviously, we need to take money out of it, and we need to get rid of the electoral college, so the majority of people choose who's representing us. That is my biggest pet peeve, is that this is not democracy when corporations and wealthy people are the ones that run stuff. It's not the people. And that is what I want to bring. And you say, how can we change it? Incrementally. So we do new Congress. There's an organization called Brand New Congress, and that's their goal, to get brand new people there. We need senators. We need to get these guys who are fixated and do all this insider trading and got wealthy and have gotten comfortable and have gotten,
and nothing
useless.
happens to them. Like there's no ramifications for this kind of corruption. I mean, we've
No,
become a gigantic banana republic.
absolutely. And see, Vicki, what happened is that there used to be honor. There used to be some kind of moral compass that leaders would have, and it would actually resign if this kind of stuff came out. It's like all the things that Donald Trump has done. A lot of people would have resigned or been censured by their party for all of these things. But it's just a free for all now, and it rolls from the top. It comes down from the top. When he does crazy stuff, then everybody's like, oh, hey, it's wide open for us now. So they don't, there's just no more value, no more honesty, integrity, and that's just something that's been missing, and we need to call it out. If nothing else, we need to call it out. We need to write letters and raise hell and do protesting in the streets with signs, and like we did when the civil rights movement or the women's rights movement. We need to get out in the streets and raise some hell, because we can't just sit there and let things keep happening and think there's going to be a different result.
I feel like that has to happen too. But I feel like it's going to be our kids, right? Because it's really hard to rally people my age to do what you're talking about, to really get in the streets. I mean, there's a small segment of the population.
Okay, I got a delay again. Okay.
Yeah, you got stuck and I kept talking. I don't know how that's going to come out on the YouTube. I'm going to wait 1 second. Looks like we're having
Okay, so what was that
a
question?
tech problem. Oh, I was just saying, what do you think about, for me, it seems pretty hard to get women my age, I'm 54 this year, into the streets, right? To make those demands. A lot of people came out anti-Trump, but they were not there for the ride before that when we needed other things fixed, right? Citizens United, and there are some, but when I see young people, maybe your kids and mine, in the place where they are, they're getting shafted, right? We left them with the situation where housing is out of control, which is, I know, another one of your primary topics. Housing is out of control. Who can afford to buy a house?
Mm-hmm.
Their jobs don't have insurance. They don't have 401ks. And, it's just, we left them with a big pile of shit. So they get in the streets. Is it too late? Are we going to see tanks in the streets like Tiananmen Square fighting these kids like we saw Occupy Wall Street, the cops going in and beating up kids who were saying, get money out of politics? That's what they were saying, right?
Sometimes it has to be, it has to, you remember when the there was this image on TV of the water hoses and the dogs down in the South. You know, sometimes it just takes that kind of dramatic activism to make things change. But why aren't people raising hell? I don't know. The young people are. We have really done them an injustice because, you know, first of all, the reason why they can't buy a house, one of the reasons is that they're saddled with the student loan debt. The cost of education has continued to rise, but the cost of living, the cost of living has continued to rise, and the salaries haven't been tied to inflation at all. So we're not making, you know, with adjusted dollars, we're not making as much money as we did 50 years ago. And it's really horrible that we've done this to our babies, you know? And so, yes, they're going to change the world. They are. They have a different way of thinking of life. They've grown up, you know, seeing each other as equals. They've grown up caring about the environment and about, you know, they've never, a lot of young people have never seen America without a war. They've never seen an America without shootings at schools. And, you know, we're handing them a piece of crap. We're handing them an environment that is failing because we don't have the leaders with the balls, the guts to go and do infrastructure change, to do Green New Deal. And we need to change it before it's too late. You know, it's not an indefinite time. We have maybe a little bit of time before it's too late, but we've got to end the reliance on fossil fuels. And it's because the fossil fuel magnets, wealthy folks they don't want you to do that, and they control the rules. So as long as we keep making it easier for them to control everything and don't have like power with the people, you know, we're gonna have to wait. And so I'm not ready to wait. I'm ready for us to, I won't say a revolution, but we got to do something different.
Well, and you're not alone. You're not alone. I see a lot of movement, right? I see some great people in Congress.
Oh, absolutely. Jamie Raskin from Maryland.
From
He's
Maryland.
amazing.
Props to
Jamie Raskin is my favorite congressperson in our district, in our congressional contingent, because he's on the right side of everything. He has a brain, and I mean, just really, I wish that Anthony Brown would take notes. Is that bad politics to say that?
No, I think that's your opponent.
But I really think we need more.
We need more women for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I wrote a book a couple years ago. It was called Sell Out, and it was about starting with Clinton and globalization, how we have offshored all of our technology. When COVID happened and we couldn't get masks, people were waking up and going, "Wow, we don't make those here." And I said, "Hold my beer," because we don't make the parts for our military high-tech systems. Like none of these things can you get without China. And now China has become the dominant superpower in the world, right? We still think we are, but I would like to differ. What could Congress do to actually reverse this? Because as much as the main character in my book has been trying to tell them this is a terrible situation, you've put the US in by offshoring all of our military technology to China. It doesn't sound like a hard sell. There's been nothing done.
So part of the reason why it's all offshore and is because of profit. They want profit. They don't want to pay workers to do a job. They don't want to pay for healthcare, like you said earlier with our young people. They go in and they just get your basic salary, and they don't get, and it's not that much. Even if you talk about $15 an hour, it's not enough. But so we need to make it harder for them to go out of the country to sell, to manufacture things, and give them incentives, yes, for working here. But also there was a really unique plan that Elizabeth Warren proposed, and that is having 40% of every corporation that makes $25 billion, have 40% of the board members should be employees. And so that they will make decisions that reflect the needs of the people and not just the bottom line. Because gosh, how much money can you have? I mean, really, you have all of this money and the rest of the world is suffering? What kind of America is that? What kind of society do we have where profit is more important than anything? Work, work, work. I lived in Italy for a while. They don't really care about, just acquiring money. It's about family. It's about love. It's about having dinner together. And, we should sort of try to promote those kind of values. So people shouldn't have to work 2 jobs just to pay the rent. We need to change the way, it's the importance of money in our society and profit. Unfettered capitalism is what's gotten us here, where the people who make the rules, all they want is no taxes and no regulation. And as long as we have no taxes and no regulation, we're going to keep getting screwed and on the wrong end of the profit line, the benefits line. What we need is universal health care. We need a higher minimum wage. We need to tie the salaries to the cost of living so that people can afford to live. We need people making within a certain annual income to have free college, and also to have the opportunity to file bankruptcy if you have to, because those kinds of things, the bankruptcy again, they used to be dischargeable under bankruptcy, but because the banks lobbied the Congress, that went away. So it's like we can't just keep governing for the rich. The people are the ones we represent, and that's what I'm trying to get to.
So we mentioned a little bit about immigration earlier. This is a big issue for me. I happen to be working on a film right now about immigration attorneys on the border.
Mm-hmm.
We're in this place where we're not a welcoming country. We're not the America that we all grew up thinking we are, with, arms open to people that are suffering. And there's just been so much negative energy put out, hurtful to humans, and it's coming from the top, right? And then it's boiling under. And that's also, affecting just the dynamic of white supremacy. This whole, it's immigrants are bad and Black people are bad and they're all scary. And this whole white supremacist movement is like bubbling to the top. And just yesterday, you were on a show on Sunday. Yesterday, we see a white woman who's calling the police on a guy who tells her to put her collar on her dog. And she's calling and she's saying, this African-American man is trying to hurt me.
Wow.
She's using the political correct version that she believes, right? So in my mind, this is a liberal woman who's like just been out to brunch, right?
Really? I didn't see that.
Yeah, at the same time, she's calling on this man. To be Black in America these days, I know I'm changing my thoughts because we're getting short on time. And then we find out another videoed police brutality murder against a Black man today. How do we stop this?
It starts at the top again. But local governments can hold people accountable for their behavior. If you call somebody and make a false claim like that, then you need to pay a penalty, even if it's just a fine, because it's just not right. And as far as the police officer who just killed the guy by putting a knee on his neck, he was fired, but that's not enough. He committed a murder. You can't continue to commit murders in the name of the state and not be held accountable for it. And so being fired is not nearly enough. We need to make sure that they all have cameras and that there's a penalty for turning the cameras off. We need to, I don't know, it's just the discourse about race in America. It's just hasn't happened yet. People like you are opening up the aperture with segments like Stars, like Straight Talk on Racism, about racism. That's a good start. but it has to be an agenda, a purposeful kind of activity that will have, have people of different backgrounds and different, immigrants and, different religions just get to know each other, because when it all boils down, we all want the same thing. We just want our families, our children to have a better life than we did. We don't want to have to wonder where our next meal is coming from. We want some of the creature comforts, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's what we're here for. And religious freedom. And it shouldn't be that hard. And it's like, I think if you have people who really care about making America really great, I mean, it's already great. We have great people, but if you got a jerk at the top of the government who's saying things that are disrespectful, every human being needs to be treated with dignity and respect, regardless of what they look like, what their sexual preference or sexual identity, or where they came from, or how much money they have, or whether they're a man or a woman, or what color. It's just, everybody's the same. We all deserve respect. I mean, you treat the person with the most menial job the same way you would somebody who's a wealthy person, because that person is human being and they deserve the same level of respect. I mean, yes, you do things more when you're being paid for it by somebody. You might give them an extra extra level of respect, but just your basic, you don't curse people, you don't demean people because, or make fun of them like he did with the person that was disabled, this president, the person in the White House, because he's really not acting like a president. The idea of presidency connotes somebody who's leading and who's guiding and who's really taking the country and moving it in a positive direction, caring about the people. And I don't think he's done that. And I don't think the Senate is doing that. And a lot of congressmen aren't doing that. And so that's why it's so important to vote. And today was the last day to ask for a ballot if you haven't got one. And it's also the last day to register to vote. I think you could still do it until 8:00 tonight. Then you can register.
You have 1 minute, folks.
Okay. Yeah. Otherwise, you have to come and see me on June 2nd, because we're going to be out there at the polls for those people who didn't take advantage of voting by mail. We're going to see you at the polls. There are 8 locations between Prince George's and Anne Arundel County.
I really miss the energy. I wish I could be out there and seeing all of you. And, it's just, it's a very strange election.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you want to be part of this political discourse, and I love to see you become an elected official.
Thank you.
I wish you the best. I'm excited for June 6th.
I am too. I'm really excited. This has been such a strange process because we weren't able to do events and knock on doors, but I have gotten to call people and talk to them and send them mail and whatever. So I'm just hoping that everybody comes out and either put your ballot in the mail or come out on June 2nd and vote.
June 2nd. I said June 6th.
June 2nd, yeah. No, please don't. Let's don't give out disinformation here.
Yeah, right. Sorry.
And check out my Facebook page, my website, bryantforcongress.com, and vote for me.
Shelia Bryant, thank you so much. I'm sorry we had technical difficulties, but we will make sure that this video gets on YouTube and any other places. Facebook. We're on YouTube, Facebook, and every other place. It's such a pleasure. I'm glad I know you. I look forward to watching your career and Rage Against the Machine.
Exactly. Thanks a lot. I appreciate your providing the opportunity and the platform. You're amazing.
Thank you, Shelia. I'll see you soon.
Okay. Take care.
Bye.